Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. I never thought a single evening could make me question everything I thought I knew about myself, about her, about us. My name is Daniel, I'm 34, and I've been dating Emily for 4 years. On the surface, we were the picture of compatibility. She was smart, vivacious, effortlessly charming. The kind of woman who could light up a room just by walking into it. I, on the other hand, was steady, reliable, the guy she said made her feel safe. I liked that about myself. I liked that she trusted me, depended on me, confided in me. But something had been shifting for months, subtle at first. Emily's laughter no longer reached her eyes when we joked. Her compliments, once warm and spontaneous, had become mechanical, almost obligatory. I brushed it off, telling myself that life got busy, work stressed her out, maybe she was tired. I told myself these were just phases, things that would pass. But that Saturday evening, everything became crystal clear. We had agreed to attend a work gala together, an event Emily's company insisted she attend. I put on my best suit, straightened my tie twice, made sure my shoes were polished. I wasn't one to care about appearances, but I wanted her to be proud of me that night. When we arrived, the hall was buzzing with chatter, champagne glasses clinking, laughter echoing against the walls. I tried to engage her in conversation as we moved through the crowd, telling her stories about my week, asking about hers. It started subtly, a raised eyebrow here, a sigh there, but soon her behavior escalated. When I introduced her to one of my colleagues, she smirked and said, loud enough for half the room to hear, "Wow, Daniel, you actually do have friends." She laughed, and the people around us chuckled, awkwardly. My face flushed, but I laughed too, nervously, trying to brush it off. I thought I misheard her. Maybe it was a joke, but the smirk never left her face. Later, at the dinner table, she continued. While I told a story about a recent project success, she interrupted mid-sentence. "Are you done bragging yet?" Her words cut sharper than any knife I'd ever felt. People at the table exchanged glances, some offering sympathetic smiles. My stomach twisted, a mix of humiliation and disbelief. I'd spent years supporting her, celebrating her achievements, always trying to make her feel cherished. And here she was, belittling me in front of everyone, as if my presence mattered nothing. I wanted to respond, to defend myself, but my voice felt trapped. The words I wanted to say were heavy, painful truths about how she made me feel, about how every subtle put-down had been building for months. But the room was full, the moment public, and I felt the weight of her smirk bearing down like a storm. I realized then that arguing would achieve nothing. It would feed her sense of control, her power over me. And for the first time, I understood that this wasn't about the gala or the table or even that evening. It was about how she had always made me feel invisible, powerless, unworthy. On the drive home, silence filled the car. I stared out the window, watching the city lights blur past, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, knuckles white, heart racing. I felt a strange combination of anger, sadness, and, most surprisingly, clarity. I didn't need to prove myself to Emily anymore. I didn't need her approval, her laughter, her fleeting attention. Every time I had chased her, hoped for her validation, I had given away pieces of myself. And now, I realized those pieces weren't coming back. The next morning, I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't try to explain, apologize, or justify myself. Instead, I woke up early, made coffee, and sat on the balcony watching the sunrise, feeling a calm I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, I understood the power of withdrawal, not as a punishment, but as a declaration of self-worth. She could belittle me, ignore me, diminish me in front of everyone, but she couldn't touch the person I was inside. That person, I decided, was enough. Over the next few days, I noticed subtle changes in her behavior. Quick glances, awkward silences, small questions about my plans, but I held firm. I didn't chase, I didn't beg, I didn't justify. I simply existed as myself, fully without apology. And something remarkable began to happen. The people around me started noticing. Colleagues complimented my work. Friends reached out more often. Strangers smiled warmly when I passed. I realized that my presence, my confidence, my refusal to be diminished, had a gravity Emily could no longer command. It wasn't immediate. It wasn't explosive. But over time, the dynamic shifted. Emily's smirks became frustrated. Her interruptions tentative. She had assumed that belittling me publicly gave her control, but it had the opposite effect. For the first time, I understood that power in a relationship didn't come from dominance, from humiliation, from forcing someone to chase you. True power came from self-respect, from clarity, from stepping back and allowing your absence to speak louder than your presence. That realization didn't just change how I interacted with her. It changed everything about me. I stopped seeking validation from someone who couldn't see my worth. And in doing so, I began to reclaim the life I had quietly surrendered. I started making decisions for myself, setting boundaries I had never dared to before. Friends noticed a change. Strangers noticed it too. And for the first time in years, I felt a quiet strength that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with me. The following week felt surreal, like I was walking through a version of my life I'd never allowed myself to inhabit. Emily, sensing the shift, tried subtle maneuvers, checking in, small remarks meant to provoke, casual jokes laced with condescension. But I didn't engage. Every time she tested the waters, I let the silence answer for me. I discovered that absence carried a weight she hadn't anticipated, a gravity that no belittling words could counter. It was Thursday when the real turning point came. I had agreed to meet a friend for lunch at a quiet cafe downtown, just to clear my head. As I sipped my coffee, I felt someone approach, a familiar presence. I glanced up and saw Emily standing there, hesitation flickering across her face. She had that look, the one that tried to mask hurt with indignation. But this time, it was different. She didn't smirk. She didn't laugh. There was vulnerability, a quiet recognition that perhaps she had underestimated me. "Daniel," she said, voice low, almost fragile. "Can we talk?" I nodded, gesturing for her to sit. For a moment, the cafe's ambient chatter seemed to fade, leaving just the two of us in an invisible room, suspended in time. She began hesitantly, recounting her side, the stress at work, the insecurity she had projected onto me, the way she had tried to maintain control through ridicule. She admitted, almost reluctantly, that seeing me step back, stop chasing, had unsettled her. She realized she had taken my patience, my loyalty, for granted. But I didn't interrupt. I didn't argue. I simply listened, feeling the power of my own boundaries resonate within me. The more she spoke, the more I understood how much control I had unknowingly given her, and how much strength I had regained by refusing to be diminished. When she paused, I finally spoke. "Emily, I've realized something important. I've spent years trying to earn your respect, your approval, even your affection. And in doing so, I forgot to respect myself. I can't change how you feel about me. I can only choose how I respond." Her eyes widened slightly, and I could see a flicker of shock. She had expected confrontation, an apology, a plea. But instead, I offered calm certainty, a clarity she couldn't manipulate. "I need to live in a way that makes me feel whole," I continued. "I can't do that while being belittled, while constantly proving my worth to someone who refuses to see it. I hope you can understand that, even if it's hard to accept." She looked down, twisting a napkin in her hands, a mix of regret and realization crossing her face. I didn't realize," she began, but I shook my head gently. "You did," I said softly. "You just chose not to, and now I'm choosing me." The next days were strange but liberating. Emily tried a few more times, text messages, social media posts, indirect jabs, but I maintained my composure. I spent my evenings with friends, indulging in hobbies I had neglected. And quietly, the humiliation and control she had once held over me dissipated. I could feel myself reclaiming the energy I had once funneled into chasing her approval. Then came the final twist. One Saturday evening, a mutual friend reached out with surprising news. Emily had confided that she realized her own actions had pushed me away, that my absence had been the first time she truly saw my worth. But rather than gratitude, she expressed frustration, a mix of envy and regret, because she had let someone invaluable slip from her life through her own behavior. I didn't respond directly. I didn't chase. I felt no need. In that moment, I understood fully. The power dynamics had shifted, but it wasn't about control. It was about recognition. I had demonstrated self-respect, resilience, and a refusal to be diminished. And in doing so, I had won something far greater than validation from her. I had won myself. Weeks later, I met someone new at a friend's gathering, a woman named Clara, sharp-witted, kind, and genuinely interested in me for who I was, not for the image I projected or the patience I offered. She laughed at my jokes, appreciated my quiet humor, and engaged in conversation without condescension. With her, there was no belittlement, no public humiliation, no exhausting chase. Just presence, connection, and mutual respect. I realized then that the evening at the gala, the humiliation, the months of subtle undermining, it had all been preparation. Preparation for me to recognize my own worth, to stop allowing others to dictate my value, and to step into a life where respect was mutual, not demanded. The shock, the pain, the public embarrassment. They were catalysts, necessary and painful, but ultimately transformative. By the time Emily attempted one last attempt to reach out, I had already moved on. I responded politely, neutrally, and didn't let the past dictate my present. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving her wrong. It was about living a life rooted in clarity, boundaries, and self-worth, a life that no one's belittlement could compromise again. The lesson lingered. Sometimes, the moment you stop chasing someone who diminishes you is the very moment everything changes. It's not dramatic fireworks. It's quiet, internal, irreversible. You stop existing for someone else's approval and start existing fully for yourself. And that change, subtle, powerful, undeniable, can transform not just relationships, but life itself.